Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Dig Talk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. People, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
It is your responsibility omwana wo kubeera mu nyumba nga teyasuze bweru mbo bamubanja rent. Koyo kulaba abalenzi abasajja abakunga butuufu tebabuulirirwa nga babulamu.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
You can take your time. Look for a job, stabilize, men will come. Men will always be there, you will get the men. Bonna goyagala musajja yenna goyagala ojja mufuna.
Embaga ketuuke. Bino bitu yasenga na ojja bafuna.
Naye ng'oli asitudde ttu yakedde ku makyabbaga nti nsitudde ttu. Naye nga mubutuufu agambye nti gy'akyali. Akyali muto.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships? Just be commenting nga topic yonna gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera kwano ku the Alternative Dig Talk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
Hey Ugandans, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense Spokesperson and actually the Deputy Spokesperson for the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I was hosted on Alternative Dig Talk. I encourage all Ugandans that this is the way to go. Always watch, participate, give your views and ask questions on Alternative Dig Talk. Dig Talk, the way to go.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
It is your responsibility omwana wo kubeera mu nyumba nga teyasuze bweru mbo bamubanja rent. Koyo kulaba abalenzi abasajja abakunga. Butuufu tebabuulirirwa nga babulamu.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the alternative dig talk mukwano gwange gwali topic kiji wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
You can take your time, look for a job, stabilize, men will come, men will always be there, you will get the men. Bonna goyagala musajja yenna goyagala ojja mufuna.
Embaga ketuuke bino bitu yasenga na ojja bafuna.
Naye ng'oli asitudde ttu yakedde ku makya baga nti nsitudde ttu naye nga mubutuufu agambye nti akyali mutoki.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships? Just be commenting a topic yona gyandiyagadde twogereko tujja kwa tujogera kwano ku the alternative dig talk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The alternative dig talk. Real issues, real talk.
Okay, the moment you hear all our bumpers and ads, then you know that you are not with any other team other than the Alternative League Talk. And my name is Norman Tumuhimbise. We are at retired Justice George Wilson Kanyehamba's home because of your high demand, and there were so many unanswered questions. The reason why we had to come back and ensure that he exploits every single question that you sent to us. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise. I'm with Justice George Wilson Kanyeihamba. And by the way, to remind you, he is still in his birthday month. So, yeah, gifts are still welcome. Justice Kanyeihamba, say hello to our viewers of the Alternative League Talk.
Hello, viewers. Nice Monday morning. Good morning.
Today is as precise as you can hear. We lost the Mogadishu, they called him the Lion of Mogadishu or Leopard, okay. General.
And the Pecos, my friend.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Who were them? Any special messages to the families, and then we shall proceed, sir.
Yes, it is really a great tragedy that we are losing great Ugandans who have served this country very well. I knew Pecos very well. He was a fellow writer. I think I somewhere have one of his copies of his book. And it's such a tragedy that he died so young. And so did the Deputy Inspector General of Police, who was the hero of Mogadishu. I think that all Ugandans were shocked, and we send our sincerest and heartfelt condolences to their respective families, and pray that their souls shall rest in blissful peace.
Okay, before we proceed deeper, I want to ask on behalf of young people. You are 82, no doubt.
Yes.
How have you made it? Is it a personal character? What makes some of you, a few of you, live longer than others?
I was looking at my life, and I am writing my memoirs. That will be my 33rd book. And I have been diabetic for nearly 50 years, since I was discovered to be, maybe more. And I have been very busy. I was a sports person. At one time, I played tennis. If you go to UK on a club called Rudder Club, I was the singles champion in 1981. So I played tennis, I played golf, I used to play squash, So when you are diabetic, but you keep sports all the time, you are a sports person, you last longer. Secondly, it's God. Many of my generation are no longer here. Younger people we are talking about, General Pecos Kutesa, and the Inspector General, we are younger, much younger than I am. Yeah. And of course, you can die of accidents and other diseases young. But the Bible said that man lives until he's 70. But if you are lucky, you can be 80. That is in the Bible. And God has kept me beyond that.
You're one of the luckiest.
So I am one of the luckiest. And maybe God has a purpose for me living longer. Because my brain has never been affected. Several years ago, a Ugandan, I should say, not very well grounded in science, declared me to be suffering from dementia and to be incapable of managing my own affairs. And in fact, I took him to court for defamation. But you know how Uganda courts are. The case has never been completed. However, having said that, he challenged me. I was in a wheelchair as I am. So he knew I wouldn't go anywhere. So he said, you go anywhere in the world, particularly in the UK, and I get a second opinion. I stand by my opinion that you are demented and that you need somebody to look after you and your affairs. It's in my book called In the Name of God, Truth and Justice. So I went. And then the experts in the UK said, what's wrong with this man? Kanyeihamba has got the brains of a 20-year-old. He's been lucky that his brain has never been affected. Then I also discovered, because I used to say I don't have enough sleep. On average, ever since I was a schoolboy, I sleep about 2 or 3 hours. The rest of the time I'm thinking or writing. So I asked them, they said, no, you are one of 0.8% in the world who doesn't need a lot of sleep. So I have always had about 3 hours. Once I have 3 hours, I'm finished. I wake up. So I remember that some of my books, including my thesis, this one, which I'm going to talk about, my wife and the children would be asleep when I'm in the studies working. They would walk in the morning, and that's when I would stop and we have breakfast. And this has always been the case. So God has blessed me, first of all, with longevity, and secondly, I have been reviewing my life. And there is nothing I did that I regret. I have lived a very happy, prosperous life. And if ever God takes me, which it will be one day, I would like people to praise the Lord and sing and be happy. Instead of crying for me, I will have done what God intended me to do. And I'm sure I'm still here to do 1 or 2 other things, including I didn't know you before, but when you heard I was retired, you came here and you say, I think the nation can still have useful conversations with you, and that's what we are doing. So I thank you, all of you, and the Ugandans, particularly also my doctors. I've had many doctors who have kept my life going. But above all, of course, I believe in God, and He's the one who has sustained me all these years. And I have lived a very, very happy life. I was talking to a young man, and he said, how old are you? At that time I was 78 9. So he said, I can't believe it. You have lived very well. So I really have lived very well. Had a family, been very happy. My wife, we've been married for nearly 58 years. Another 2 years we shall clock what they call the Golden Jubilee. And when we got married, people thought it would not last very long. They said it was fanciful because she's English and I am Ugandan.
In fact, you are Mchigezi.
And in my village in Kabale and part of my people live in Chinchizi, I am only known as the man who married the Mzungu. I am identified by my wife. Okay, thank you very much, Norman. Let's go to the subject.
You know, you talked of squash, and I realized that Kato and so many colleagues, with squash, they just drink it. Now I'm surprised. Now squash is, as in being sport is now. So young people there know that squash is some drink that people take.
Squash is a game. It's a ball, and you play the ball on a netting. Rather in a wall, and it is played on the wall. It's called a squash.
Okay. Yeah, we are with Justice Kanyeihamba, and colleagues, ensure that you go on to our social media page, that is the Alternative Uganda. Also on our YouTube channel, that's Alternative Uganda as well, and on Twitter it's the Alternative Yuga. Share, I invite colleagues, unlike so many other bloggers or otherwise. For us, we are a media house, a formal media house that does guided, professional, and wonderful discussions. That's why we host gentlemen, countrymen like Justice Kanyeihamba and so many others. Later on, I will ask you to call our studio line 0789 017 145. That's in our second hour. Let's go straight, Justice Kanyeihamba. You said we would spare the first 8 or so minutes about your PhD thesis, and then we shall begin with our unanswered questions.
Yes. You know, we always wonder who is an expert. And many Ugandans think I'm an expert on constitutional law. I have written many books on constitutional law, but I am an expert on land use, and land development. That is where I did my PhD. I got my PhD in urban land development in 1974. The first ever law PhD at Warwick University. And it is in 2 volumes. My supervisor was a man called Professor Makoslan. He was an Englishman of Scottish origin. And because mine was the first ever PhD at Warwick University, one of the most fashionable universities in the UK, he used me as a guinea pig because my thesis would be an example for future PhDs at Warwick forever. So it is the first ever at Warwick. Now, having said that, much of the materials I used were not available in Uganda, but it is about East Africa. This is about East Africa. And most people whom I administer were DCs, administrators. And every time they wrote a report, confidential, it was classified in Uganda, but they sent copies to their universities, Cambridge or Oxford. So if you wanted the materials on Mailo, customary law, for Bukigezi or Ankole, the best sources were Cambridge and Oxford. I think everybody would be very amazed. I had gone to our towns, went to Mbarara, went to Guru, went to Lira, looking for materials on land, and they would find classified. There is somebody in the governor's office, or rather in the former governor's office, said, if you want these materials, which are classified in Uganda, go to Oxford University or Cambridge University, and you'll find them there on the shelves. And that's what I did. So people wonder, why did the people like Kanyeihamba do research in places like Oxford and Cambridge when they were writing land, law, and urban problems in Kampala, Nairobi, and Dar es Salaam? That is the reason. So most of the materials which are classified in the former colonial governments are freely available in the universities where our administrators studied. That's number one. Number two, so this book, my book, there is not any authority in East Africa, whether it is a case or a regulation or a law which I did not, which is not in this book. So it is the greatest source of all legal matters relating to land
urban development
and development. Then in the 1970s, we had a conference of all experts on land acquisition, leasehold, East Africa. And we got very learned, very researched papers from those resource persons at the conference. I was one of the delegates, so was Dr. or Professor Makosla. So we were honored and asked to be the editors of all those materials. And we came up with this book, Urban Legal Problems in Eastern Africa. There are articles here from all the experts on land acquisition, land development in East Africa. There are papers on Kampala, land problems. There are papers from Nairobi, problems. Mombasa, problems. We had, I think, some guests from West Africa, Dar es Salaam. Edited by Professor Kanyeihamba, rather Dr. Kanyeihamba, and Professor Makosla. But let me tell you more. When I finished my PhD, I was examined among others by Africanists, whom they called professors of African knowledge. They included Professor Makosla, Professor Reed, Professor Allott, the late Professor Allott, and I forget another professor, Professor Birmingham, and they recommended that this book is the most wonderful source of law relating to all problems of land, and it should be published. So they advised Cambridge, rather Oxford University, that Kanyeihamba has written the most fundamental source of all land problems relating to land. Can you publish it? I got a letter from the Oxford Publishing House. They said, but it is too big. Reduce it to 1/3 of what it is, and we shall publish it. But I had slaved over this thesis for 3 years, and I said, no, I'm tired. So it remains as it is. When I came and joined the government, remember I came first as Minister of Commerce. The president I had written on land. Actually, I thought he was going to make me minister of land. So he called his PA, who was then Colonel Serwanga, I forget his military rank, and he said Kanyeihamba should bring a copy of his works. I took this book here, Urban Legal Problems in Eastern Africa. I also took a copy of this thesis. They were placed in State House, in the president's office. After some 6 months, I asked Serwanga, has the president ever had a time either to browse through? He said no. So he said, you might as well take them back. So I brought them back. But the former minister later, much later, of lands, what is his name? Mijeko said, I gather that you have a big thesis on land law in East Africa. Can I have a copy? That is the minister of land. So at my own, at the expense of the judiciary, because it was done when I was the judge of Supreme Court, they produced a copy of this thesis, and I sent it personally. Rather, I took it personally to Mijeko at his ministry in Kampala. So there is a copy of this. Then the copy, I had sent a copy when I was doing my PhD at Makerere University. The copy was vandalized. Students would go in the library and pull out pages. I think cannibalism, as they call it. Eventually, a very dilapidated thesis during the minister's time, I think 1979, thereabouts, before he was overthrown, was found on a rubbish heap at Wandegea. 2 books like this one, everything broken out. And the one ambassador, Ernest Rusita, discovered it there. And he picked it up. He said, Professor, I found your thesis in a rubbish bin at Wandegea. I saved it, but it had been cannibalized. So when I told Makerere was shocked. The then deputy librarian was Mrs. Tibendirana. She's now, I think, librarian at Kampala International University. And she talked to me. I said, I don't have any copy. They wrote it to Warwick. And the Warwick produced this copy at their own expense and sent it to Makerere. When it got to Makerere, I am told, Makerere put it in the Africana section, and that's how it is locked up. So if you ask that you want to read Kanyeihamba, Urban Legal Problem in Eastern Africa, then apparently you have to have a key from the library before you can read there, because they know it could be cannibalized. So I am appealing to scholars in Uganda. People I know are interested in this kind of subject. People like Professor Kasozi of the Christian University at Mkone. Please find money. People like Sudiro, he has got a university. Give us money and we publish this, because it is a fundamental source of everything relating to land, acquisition, development, leases, and housing. And also, for me, I'm making a promise. at my own expense, I'm going to produce urban legal problems in Eastern Africa. There are very fundamental articles in this book which would help Museveni to understand the urban problem. Because from what I have heard, he really doesn't understand. Yesterday, somebody sent me a video, no, rather a recording. And whoever is who in the Kingdom of Uganda, who is an expert, including those who used to be, or rather are, supporters of President Museveni as our leader, they all talked very passionately about Mailo. And 100% of them said he was wrong to attack Mailo land. I listened to them. They included the people like Nadule, is it?
Haji Nadule.
Yes.
Yeah.
They included the people like the former Vice President of Kenya. They included lawyer Mulira, Peter Mulira, and it was a variety of them. They were all Baganda. And they were all saying the president is touching a holy cow. And if you remember in our first meeting with you on the land of, on the subject of land, I said the president is making a mistake. So today, I don't know what questions you have for me, but I want to repeat what I said. If really he wants his government to survive and to continue soldiering on, he must drop his opposition to the Mailo land immediately. I believe that his minister, who is claiming that he's going to deal with land, I forget his name. I know he works with the Erika Ruhanga, Chamber, Kampala Associates. I think he's wrong. He's terribly, terribly wrong, and he's a political hot potato. Actually, it is not a hot potato, it is a bomb. For the first time since the Kabaka was restored rather Kabakaship, the holder of the Kabakaship, Ronnie, has mourned and said words which are very ominous. He said, I do not want to secede from Uganda. If President Museveni didn't hear that, then I think he should be thinking, as I have already recommended, retiring from politics. Thank you.
Says Justice Kanyeihamba. Now we're going into straight. It's sometimes they call it Q&A, question and answer. What one of our viewers was asking, did not exploit land banking.
Yes.
Is indeed land banking.
This is very, very interesting. You remember I took this book to the President's office. The Minister of Lands, Nijereko, has a copy in his book. And one of the subjects I cover, which is also covered in my thesis, is land banking. Land banking is, as the word implies, for the government or public authority to acquire land slowly from time to time and reserve it for its use in the future, in case it wants to build a hospital there, in case it wants to build a military establishment there. And this book was published a long way, 1978. When we had that conference of experts on land and land-related problems. I think it was in Nairobi or Kampala, I don't know. I was nominated under Professor Makoslan to edit this book. And if you look at it, edited by Professor Kanyeihamba, by Dr. Kanyeihamba and Professor Makoslan. So it has been in existence since 1978. All experts from Africa contributed to this. In Uganda, you can when you have time, you can see which articles are there. Mailo land banking is there, Makosland is there, and various others. So you say, who are these people who advise the president? Obviously, if we ask them now, have you ever read Kanyehamba's thesis, which is a classic on land in East Africa? Have you ever read the book authored by, rather edited by him and the late Professor Makoslan? I will tell you the problem with Africa on this question. When I finished my thesis at Warwick, Zambia wrote to Makoslan to go and establish their legal regime on land in Zambia. By that time, Makosland was very busy. Remember, he's also the one who designed Dodoma, the capital of Tanzania. So he recommended that he has got an African expert on the same subject, Dr. Kanyeihamba now. I wasn't a doctor before this PhD. And he was recommending that I should go and draft their law. I think the answer he got, he never showed me in writing, is that no, we wanted a European. I want you to remember that. And I wish you younger people, you would remember. You don't trust your experts.
Someone must have
So they must have found somebody else. Then let me tell you something. First, when the government decided to establish the Law Development Center at Makerere, we knew about it. We offered Professor Kakoza, the late Obolo Chola, and myself, we offered to give them a draft of what the law school should be. The then Minister of Justice and Attorney General, late Mugerwa, he had studied at Cambridge. So instead of accepting our offer, he appointed the two young graduates from his former university, Cambridge, to come and establish the regime of the law school. They knew nothing about the subject. They knew about what we wanted. They didn't know. They were just fresh graduates from Cambridge. So do you know what happened? We were at Makerere. They consulted us privately. What shall we do with this? What department should we put it there? But because they wrote a program for Mugerwa, and they were Europeans, Cambridge, LLB, whatever, it was accepted by the government. Hence, the Law Development Center. But the input
was yours. That
was ours.
That they avoided that.
Yes. But had we put the name Kakoza and the Kanyeihamba proposal, they would not have accepted it.
Because you are not.
This is a colonial mentality that we have. When I hint at it, actually people don't even laugh. Because as I told you, when President Museveni had come in, he was an African nationalist developer. And when somebody called his wife First Lady, he said, "Why do you call my wife First Lady? We are not Americans. But day after day, in the monitor especially, and in the New Vision, the First Lady, I have a letter from her thanking me for not calling her First Lady, but saying Honorable. Nobody, I mentioned it this second time, but no reporter from New Vision or from Monitor has ever come say, show us that letter. No!
I want to take you back to land banking.
Yes, please.
Why did your suggestion to have land banking fail if you ever proposed it to your former, to your friend, not former friend, to your friend, President Museveni, about land banking? What made it fail as an idea or as a proposal?
The reason it failed is the same reason that when you read Museveni's publication, The Mustard Seed,
Yeah.
the name Kanyeihamba does not even have a footnote there. You ask him, we know what Kanyeihamba did for you. We know what he did to the movement. He was with you in Lusaka, where you co-founded the Liberation Front. He came to your advice when there were talks in Nairobi. He was in the background. He's the one who recommended when Rule died that you should be you should succeed. Not Rule. You should succeed Rule instead of Chiseka, which some of the people wanted. I am the one who articulated that. When there was, you are being threatened in Nairobi, it is Kanyeihamba who made arrangement for Ruhakana Rugunda and Babasi to escape, and they were received by his friend in Sweden. Eventually, your wife was there. When we were family, we were a bit stranded in London. Kanyeihamba helped with the late Sir John Bagade. Why do those people not figure at all in your publication?
You have...
when you ask him, when you are still fighting in the bush, Kanyeihamba would write to you. And then you would ask Matayo Chaligonza, because he's the one who told me, that he would read my letter in the bush to the High Command. And say, our professor, those days I was in, is proposing this and that. What do you say? There is the chairman of the external committee of the NRA. He's called Masuru Chikeri. He's still alive.
Yeah, he even wrote a book recently.
Yes, and he's written a book. You ask him. We were collaborating. He was external in the office in London with Ernest Rusita and the late Matogo. Why don't they appear? If you ask the High Command, including people like Chad Gonza, people like Johnny Kazola, Major, they will tell you why. That is part of the method of bad African government. If there is somebody who has done something even more remarkable, try to minimize what they have done in order for you to outshine.
Are you meaning that's Mr. Museveni's character?
Pardon?
Are you meaning that is Mr. Museveni's character?
What I have said, I have said. Don't you have the meaning? Do I have to explain myself more? Having said that, you ask those, you read the books of other experts on Museveni. Read the book by Johnny Kazura,
Betrayed by my
Betrayed by My Leader. Read the last one by Matembe. Read those. Then you don't have to. They were much closer to him than me. Don't depend on what Kanyeihamba says by hearsay. Having said that,
That is how he suffocated.
I have told you that he knew I was an expert
on land.
on land. He knew I was in his government. At one time, I was the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice in his government. Why didn't he ask for my advice? Knowing I was one of, if not the only expert on land and land-related problems in Uganda. He made me Minister of Justice, Attorney General
Commerce.
for a long time. He made me Judge of the Supreme Court. He made me his Senior Presidential Advisor on Human and People's Rights. Why not on land? Now, we come now to the main problem, which we are discussing. I have told you that he is wrong on his concept of Mailo land today and about peasants, what he called Abawegere, and also that he wants land for public projects. I want you to go to two places where I'm asking Ugandans to do. We used to have Shimon School. It was given away. I don't know whether the president was responsible. And there is now a development called, is it Kingdom or something? A huge complex. And it is being hired by the government to house about 200, rather 130 MPs at a very exorbitant rate, rather rent. Tell me, how will the ordinary people who used to pay Busuru and Mvuju benefit from the kingdom? The land at Nsambya, which used to belong to the police, was taken over mysteriously, presumably by the government. A huge hotel over there too have come up there. They are soon to open a supermarket, huge supermarket. I think they call it ShopRite, shopping complex. How many ordinary Baganda who usually pay Busuru and the Vujolo, if there were any, benefit? Now let's move from there to here, where I live. I live on Sabasaja's land. Under the 1900 agreement, princes of the Kabaka, other chiefs were given land. And the Kabaka himself was giving his family, part of it is where I'm living now. So it is a part of the Mailo land. I want you to remember that. But my neighbor here, who is related to Museveni, is also in my land. He is a Munyankole. I am a Mchiga. Next door to me, up here, is Ujanga. He's on my land. Ujanga is from West Nile. He used to be a minister in our government. If you go a bit higher, there is the late Chivenjeri's daughter was married to Mugaju, somebody from Ankole. She's there with her son up here. Opposite them near, there is a professor of Makerere of Indian origin. Mahmudan. Then, if you go a bit further down here, the king of Utoro has got a mansion there, and his mother lives there. Kemigisa is a Mutoro. Opposite her, Saleh. I can't go now. The relative of Museveni. His family lives there. And he owns the house permanently. Is he taking our lands away from us? So that it can be developed? Is Mahmudani to go? Kanyeihamba to go? Rwabogo to go? Saleh to go? Is Ujanga to go? Mahmudani to go? So that they acquire these lands? We are getting into an absurdity.
Okay, we cannot have an answer for now until when we come back in the next 30 or so seconds. We're back in our second hour. I encourage you to call our studio number 0789-017-145. The questions that you sent prior, do not mind. I am beginning these very questions as soon as we come back. Don't go away.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Ugandans, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense Spokesperson and actually the Deputy Spokesperson for the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I was hosted on Alternative Dig Talk. I encourage all Ugandans that this is the way to go. Always watch, participate, give your views and ask questions on Alternative Dig Talk. Dig Talk, the way to go.
Beautiful people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
It is your responsibility omwana wo kubeera mu nyumba nga teyasuze bweru mbo bamubanja rent. Koyo kulaba abalenzi abasajja abakunga. Butuufu tebabuulirirwa nga babulamu.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
You can take your time look for a job, stabilize, men will come, men will always be there, you will get the men. Bonna goyagala musajja yina goyagala jamufuna.
Embaga ketuke. Bino bitu yasenga na ojaba funa.
Nenga oli asitudde tu yakedde ku machabaga nti nsitudde tu. Nenga mbutufu agambye nti gyachali. Achali mutoki.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships? Just be commenting at topic yona jandiagadde twogere ko tujja ko tujogera kwanu ku the alternative dig talk ku share enganzi the snap talk.
Hey Ugandans, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense Spokesperson and actually the Deputy Spokesperson for the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I was hosted on Alternative Dig Talk. I encourage all Ugandans that this is the way to go. Always watch, participate, give your views and ask questions on Alternative Dig Talk. Dig Talk, the way to go.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hello beautiful people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
It is your responsibility omwana wo kubeera mu nyumba nga teyasuze bweru mbo bamubanja rent. Koyo kulaba abalenzi abasajja abakunga butuufu tebabuulirirwa nga babulamu.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic ki wandiagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
You can take your time, look for a job, stabilize, men will come, men will always be there, you will get the men. Bonna goyagala musajja yina goyagala jamufuna.
Embaga ketuke. Bino bitu yasenga na ojaba funa.
Nenga oli asitudde tu yakedde ku machabaga nti nsitudde tu. Nenga mbutufu agambye nti gyachali. Achali mutoki.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships? Just be commenting at topic yona jandiagadde twogere ko tujja ko tujogera kwanu ku the Alternative Dig Talk ku share enganzi the snap talk. You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Dig Talk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo mu maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop, and smart TVs. As we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
It is your responsibility omwana wo kubeera mu nyumba nga teyasuze bweru mbo bamubanja rent. Tukoye okulaba abalenzi abasajja abakunga. Butuufu tebabuulirirwa nga babulamu.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Dig Talk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
You can take your time, look for a job, stabilize, men will come, men will always be there, you will get the men. Bonna goyagala musajja yenna goyagala ojja mufuna.
Embaga ketuuke. Bino bintu byasenga na ojja bafuna.
Naye ng'oli asitudde ttu yakedde ku macabaga nti nsitudde ttu. Naye nga mu butuufu agambye nti gy'akyali muto.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships? Just be commenting a topic yona gyandyagadde twogereko tujja kuba tujogera kwano ku the Alternative Dig Talk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, yeah, we're back. Thanks for keeping it the Alternative Uganda on our social media page. Our YouTube channel is the Alternative Uganda, and our Facebook social media page where we broadcast live as of now, and when we have any shows, it's the Alternative Uganda. There is this question straight away, Justice Kanyeihamba. There is our follower and our viewer who asked that why were you deemed by so many in NRM as Museveni is a troubleshooter? Why are you a troubleshooter?
Actually, it is Museveni himself who regarded me as a troubleshooter. And indeed, I remember when the Muslim extremists murdered 4 soldiers at Old Kampala, the president called me and he said, "You are my troubleshooter, go and sort out that one." You are currently involved in the formation of the Kanyeihamba Foundation, and whose aim is to perpetuate my kind of behavior, transparency, integrity, accountability, and obviously human rights. The others came into the movement either because they were military people, they had the military groups like Museveni, or they were politicians like the same Mogirides and the Mulengas of this world when we started forming government. For me, Museveni recruited me because of my belief in human rights and integrity. And you remember, I was the only one ever when I stopped being minister. I was the only one ever, his senior presidential advisor on human rights and international affairs. When I became a judge of the Supreme Court, that portfolio died. So it seemed that it had been tailored for me alone. I'm not saying I'm unique, but I am one of the very few people who can look Museveni in the eye and say, "Mr. President, with all due respect, I think we are wrong on this. or government is wrong on this. There are very few people who can do so. Let me tell you what I would have done. On 2 occasions, President Museveni proposed something which was not constitutional to people who knew the law and who were lawyers. One incident was where my good friend Ben Odochi completed his term as Chief Justice. Then President Museveni, who is not a lawyer, thought he could reappoint him again as the Chief Justice. And he's still alive. Ben Odochi accepted to be forward as the Chief Justice. Had I been him, I would say, with due respect, Mr. President, you have no powers to appoint me as a retiring Chief Justice to remain Chief Justice. The law, the Constitution, stops you doing that. You would have to amend the Constitution first, and in any case, I would have to be recommended by the Judicial Service Commission, and it has not recommended me. But if you remember, my good friend Ben Odochi kept silent, just accepted what the president said. There's another good friend of mine. When he was DPP, we used to eat together lunch and compare notes. And that's Justice Richard Butera, who is now regarded as the Deputy Chief Justice. But the information I got is that Byamukama and the Judicial Service Commission were either not consulted or did not approve, rather did not vet him. When the president nominated the Chief Justice, Dolo, who was properly nominated and appointed by the recommended by the Judicial Service Commission, then the president said there is a gap. So why can't Butera become deputy? And he just made him deputy. That is the rumor. I know the truth of the matter. So I challenged, I said, Butera, my friend, you are there illegally because you have to be recommended first by the Judicial Service Commission before you are made the Deputy Chief Justice. But everybody has kept silent. Nobody has said no. The information you got to Kanyeihamba is wrong. This is the letter from Byamukama as chairman of the Judicial Service Commission recommending Butera to be Deputy Chief Justice. And this is the letter of appointment, because the letter of appointment of a judge, particularly of Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice, in accordance with the recommendation of the Judicial Service Commission, I hereby appoint so and so Chief Justice or Deputy Chief Justice. He must cite, the president must cite the recommendation. And if they don't, you Butera don't accept. You Odochi, the Seru, the article says when I am 70, I retire. Therefore, I have retired and you can't reappoint me Chief Justice. So my question is, why did these learned friends of mine not advise the president, sir, with due respect, I don't qualify to be so and so? Let me give you an analogy. Suppose my Dr. Dungu is my friend. He runs the Memorial Medical Services. Supposing he called me, he said, George, my good friend, I am leaving for 3 months. Please, would you be in charge and operate on my patients? I would say no. With due respect to my friend, I'm not qualified. The qualification and the ability to do certain things, it should be you first. President Museveni will be my witness. When he decided to appoint me Minister of Commerce, I was a lawyer. As I told you, either I was grounded in land law and development or in constitutional law, since I had land. Then he said, I want you to be Minister of Commerce. It is true, I did commerce, a subject called commerce, but I was not practical. So I told the President Museveni, I said, excuse me, you want to appoint me Minister of Commerce, but I am not an economist. I know nothing about economics, trade, and so on. So he laughed. He said, no, that's not the reason I am appointing you. They have told me you are a troubleshooter, you are very disciplined, and you have integrity. The man I wanted to head commerce is a man of integrity who will tame those thieves in commerce. I will not mention names, but there were others in the movement who were obviously qualified, economists, but he didn't appoint them. Because his aim was to appoint an administrator, not qualified in economics, but who can discipline
The rest.
the team. And that's what I did. By the way, to be fair to him, when he eventually transferred me from being Minister of Commerce to being Minister of Justice and Attorney General, President Museveni thanked me. He said, he always called me Kanyeihamba. He said, Kanyeihamba, you did this a great deal. You did very well for the country, being a Minister of Commerce. You saved us with better trade, and you controlled the thieves in that ministry. He thanked me.
Okay.
So that is why I'm called a troubleshooter.
Okay, our viewers, we are on our social media page. That's the Facebook page, The Alternative Uganda. There is this question in regards to, it goes in line with being a Mr. Museveni's troubleshooter. You are involved in the conflicts between two Muslim factions.
Yes.
What didn't you do right? Because as far as we know, your recommendation or your report, even the entire report was more or less put aside, because the person you had, in your view as a commission, brought as an interim Mufut was more or less put aside in a speech by Haji Chivei Jinja.
That's right. It's very, very interesting, and actually it tells you the nature of politics in Uganda. President Museveni, again as his troubleshooter, I am a Protestant. I am the Church of Uganda, committed Christian. But in his wisdom, and I think he did it right, he said that these fasting Muslims, they will never accept fellow Muslims to mediate. So on his own, quite brilliantly, he said, let me use Christians to make peace. And he appointed me chairman of the international conference. Now, my people, he didn't call them deputies, but he knew they were going to be my sister, were the late Katama, a very staunch Catholic, and Gertrude Njuba, a very formidable NRM supporter at the time, activist, and indeed he's the one who convinced us when they came to give us a lecture in the UK to be members of the movement. So I convinced him that we needed a very good and committed secretary, and I recommended Prof. Oshan, who is now the chairman of the public service of Uganda, and he was our secretary. And let me tell you why the President Museveni was right. When we assembled, some of the fanatical Muslims objected very strongly. They said, why should we be cancelled by Christians,
On Muslim related things.
by non-Muslims? And one of them speaking say, who is this Kanyeihamba? I'm told he's a Christian. My deputy at the conference was none other than the retired rector of the oldest Muslim university in the world, Alexandria. And he's the one who responded, said, are you a Muslim? The man said yes, angrily. He said, don't you know that Allah can use any person to settle what he regards as a problem? That silenced him, and we went ahead. Now, what mistakes did we make? We didn't make any mistake. There is somebody called Chanjo. He was one of our advisors and
Are you meaning
interpreters.
former MOP for
That's right, yeah.
Hussein Chanjo?
Yeah, I think he's not well.
Yeah. Honorable Hussein Chanjo.
That's right. But he was those who really was my very close advisor, even though he was an interpreter. He interpreted from Arabic to English. Now, President Museveni, had he told me, I would have achieved it. But he never told me that among the contestants, the rival factions, one led by Sheikh Kakoza of Chibuli, and the other one led by the late Lumumba of old Kampala, that he had a preference. Unknown to me, Lumumba was closer to Museveni. Apparently he had supported the NRM, whereas Kakoza had been neutral. Lumumba was more radical and outlooking than Kakoza, who was conservative and basically a typical Muganda Muslim. I didn't know that at the beginning. All I knew, Lumumba led the old Kampala faction and the Kakoza, the Chibuli one. So there were delegates representing all the Muslim factions in Uganda. And when we assembled in Kampala, we elected the former rector of Alexandria as my deputy chairman. So we assembled. The conference took place at Ambarara. Lakeview Hotel. Then we deliberated very amicably. We made recommendations. And when we ran out of money, President Museveni, he was keen that there should be a settlement. He actually gave his own money to complete the conference. That's how keen he was. And he would call me from time to time for consultations. We would meet and he said, we need the following, please, Kanyeihamba, push this point, which I did. Then on a Friday, I think we were a whole week in Mbarara, he sent us the batch of money, 4 million, and we came to the conclusion. And when people heard that there had been now peace, and our conference had achieved the impossible, united everybody, I got a lot of calls. First, I got from the late Abu Mayanja. He said, Kanyeihamba, thank you very much. You have achieved the impossible. We never knew there would be peace among the Muslim communities. The other one who called me was Ambassador, he was Ambassador Muslim, I forget. Later he became a minister, but I forgot him now. But he called me. Then the other one who called me was Chigongo, the deputy chairman of the NRM. He said, thank you. And other politicians called me, said, this is wonderful, we are going to have peace, Muslim. So I was very pleased. So I called President Museveni. I said, come and close
The conference.
the conference. I didn't talk to him personally, but later I got a message from his office saying he is not available. Those are the words I got. He is not available. But I got very suspicious. Museveni was very keen.
The entire process.
Yes, he even gave his own personal money. But and we have finished very nicely. Why hasn't he come? Now, what happened, which he didn't tell me about, is the conference itself, particularly those delegates which were representing moderates, said, we are going to have 2 years in which to make a Muslim Supreme Council constitution to govern all Muslims in Uganda. Therefore, during that period, Kakoza and Luwemba should not be leading. They should stand aside because they are going to be candidates after 2 years when we adopted the new constitution. And it sounded very reasonable. So we accepted that proposal as a good compromise. But unknown to me, President Museveni didn't like it. He had wanted us to make Luwemba the interim mufti during the 2 years, so that Luwemba would have influenced the new constitution, of the making of the new constitution. So that is why he declined to come and close the conference. Then later, as you have rightly said, he called the cabinet and he said, the money we made into Mufti was not even qualified to be a Mufti under the then Muslim constitution. That's why we deliberately appointed him interim so that he can never challenge and stand as a candidate, which was very good, we thought. Then apparently he called the cabinet and he said he's not going to accept Kanyeihamba as Mufti, the interim one. He said Kanyeihamba took it upon himself to appoint a Mufti who is not for movement, and he will not have him. And then that is when Chivejinja went for prayers the following Friday and denounced what we had done. I was really amazed knowing the accolade I had got from the others. Be that as it may, eventually, our resolutions were implemented. That Mukasa became interim Mufti, but he was not recognized by the government. Things went in, but they followed our recommendations. Our resolutions at Mbarara were followed, and it is under those that Mubaji was elected. In fact, the then Secretary General of the Muslim Supreme Council, the late, he was a Munyankole, the late who, he died. He invited me to attend the installation of Mufti Mubaji. Kalis, I think he was called. But I didn't go. And that's how it happened. But those who are interested in following the matter, I wrote a book, Reflections on Uganda Muslim Leadership Crisis. It is published by Fountain Publishers, and is a recommended textbook at the International Islamic University of Uganda, Tambale, and it should be in the bookshops.
Okay. We are with Justice Kanyeihamba. I am doing my best to give him the best of our time so that he's not interfered.
I'll try to be short in the next questions.
Let me ask on behalf of our viewers and young people, but most importantly, the Muslim community. As a chairperson of that committee or commission at a time, what did you find as the cause of these conflicts? Because as of today, we still have two factions. There is the Chibudi faction and there is the Odi Kampala, and these two are parallel. Didn't you perform to your expectations at a time to unite the Muslims?
What we found, the late Katama, Gato Dunjuba, Rafa Chan, who is now the chairman of the Public Service Commission, and the Chanjo, who is sick but will confirm, is that there were no religious differences. There were no differences about how you worship Allah, or whether you recognize the angels, rather Muhammad. No. It is purely based on who controls the property of the Muslim Council. It's about property. That is a problem, and I'm sure it remains the same. From time to time, the accusations that the council has sold Muslim property, that the Mufti has illegally given away land, that is where the problem is. Property, wealth. Because you know our problem, and it is in that book I have talked about. The other religions, the Catholics, the Protestants, they came here mainly on religious grounds as missionaries to bring Christianity and the teaching of Jesus to our people. The Muslims who introduced Islam in Uganda came as businessmen and traders. And ever since then, trade, commerce, and the business is associated with government. You have to be a friend of the government to be in the government in order to be rich. That is the principle of Islam in Uganda. It is associated with acquiring property and doing business. And where there is business and the trade, there is trouble.
It's a tricky one, but I'll also ask you, to so many, the Chibudi faction is regarded as anti-government vis-a-vis the old Kampala. What would be your comment? Just because you worked so hard, and I don't want to castigate you, but most likely so many people will assume that your committee at the time failed because you did not unite Muslims, because we have two factions. Which is a faction? So what would your comment be? That
I would disagree. I have told you I didn't see, and you can ask Gertrude Njuba and Ochan. Ochan is still working in the government. We never saw that there was a dichotomy between the Ruwemba group at Old Kampala and the other group at Chibudi, and that one was anti-government and the other one was for government. No, I don't accept that was there. I would not say, I think he's now very old, Kakoza, that he was anti-government. He wasn't. In fact, he was very friendly to Museveni. When you take it into Museveni was the head of the government. During the struggle against the Idi Amin regime, many people, including the princess of Uganda, who tended to worship at Chibudi, were for movement. The second in command of the NRM, Chigongo, I believe worships at Chibudi. So there is no truth whatsoever that those of the old Kampala were pro-movement and that those of Chibudi were anti-movement. No, that is not true. I can really tell you fairly that having met those people, including people like Chanjo and the young people, we had a representative from Kabale. Muslims were not very many in Kabale, but we had one. They were pro-movement. The majority of those people who attended the Mbalala conference, the international conference, were pro-movement.
If I may ask on behalf of our viewers, Justice Kanyeihamba, in your view, because I am asking you as an expert, or of course as Mr. Museveni's troubleshooter, why do you think we have two factions up to now? Because it's good years ago, ever since you led that commission, and in my view, just like so many people would assume that as one of the moving forward at a time would be to have one mufut than it is now. What do you think was or is the problem?
No, really, I think that having factionalism in Uganda organizations seems to be a national phenomenon. Even Protestants, they have factions, but locally, extreme but locally, those who are pro Canterbury, you know that some of those factions in America regard Uganda, because we are against homosexuality, sexual thing, which I am against. They regard it as they are the Church of Uganda, and that kind of factionalism is not unique to the Muslim community. We achieved a great deal in uniting them, in the sense that at the time, I have told you, people were killed at Old Kampala. There was raging battles between people at Wandege and Moscow, others at Nakasero. The factions were many, tabliks and so. You no longer hear them now. So to that extent, we achieved a great measure of peace and unity in the Muslim community. And since Mubaji, we have had no problem, really. And the leaders of Chibuli are not militant. Otherwise, you don't hear battles going on. Otherwise, in those days, people were killed. So we achieved something.
Would I be wrong to connect definitely this is it's not with the prejudice, because some of the issues are still in court, that some of these murders in one way or the other could be as a result of these disagreements, because you hear different factions castigating others because of these these murders and the rest of the sheikhs and the rest.
Well, I am as ignorant as you are. I don't have any concrete evidence of this or the other. But we have so many rumors going. They tell us ADF is involved in this or the other. When you go to the Middle East, you may have those Muslims which identify with Saudi Arabia. Those will be different from those who identify with the Palestinian cause. And then another angle, there are people in Uganda, Muslims, who are fanatical supporters of the Palestinian cause. Others who say we are traditionalists of Saudi Arabia, and those can spill in the conflicts in Uganda. So really, it's a very complicated and puzzle. And for me as an intellectual thinker, I would be very reluctant to put a quick decision and say it is this or the other.
Okay, yeah, we are moving. Let me ask again on behalf of someone asks here. You talked about all these conflicts of factions.
Yes.
Do you think at a certain point, President Museveni sometimes is a beneficiary of these conflicts, in your view? These factions?
You know, sometimes we attribute a lot to Museveni, which is not correct. In my opinion, the divisions and the factions of the Muslim community are beyond Museveni's machinization or even thinking. As far as that conflict is concerned, Museveni is just like us. He's an observer. But being president of Uganda, he would like to see peace. And sometimes he makes a mistake. For example, in my opinion, by going too strong in favor of Ruwemba against Kakoza, that was a mistake. He should have been neutral. He is the one who hosted the international conference. That conference was, delegates came from all the Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, Libya, Sudan, Kuwait. So he should have accepted our recommendations. Had he accepted our recommendations, then a unifying constitution would have been made within 2 years. And under that constitution, like we did in Uganda, civil arrangement, there would have been an election in which all Muslims would take part, some kind of like a confederation. And then Mufti term would have been presumably 5 years, election every time. And that would have created more ease and more relaxation than Mubaji. I don't know whether they ever did any constitution. They don't seem to have done any after our conference. So that is a mistake. The term of the Mufti should always be limited. Maybe 5 years, maybe 7 years. But when you have one leader who is controversial, controlling the Muslim property all the time, and you don't have any inkling when that Mufti will leave, that will fuel conflict.
One asks here, which reasons did you have to recommend that Mr. Museveni succeeds late Rule?
Oh, no, that was very easy. If you remember, before Kampala fell and we knew the NRM had won with the assistance of Tanzania, Museveni was deputy. Although he was army commander fighting in the field, his boss, they were together. Lule was the chairman and Museveni was the vice. But there were elements mainly from the Buganda area and the other conservative areas who thought that Museveni, being what he was, radical, accused of being a communist and a militarist, would not be good for Uganda. And therefore we needed somebody who was as sober and non-military. And at that time, the closest friend, who was the NRM also, was Chiseka.
Samson.
Yes, so some people thought Chiseka should replace Rule. And they had some good points. One of them was that the fighting was in Buganda, and therefore we needed a Buganda chairman. The others was that he was a well-known public figure who had served Buganda, was a doctor, and was respected. Museveni was a younger man, a militarist, who had connections with communism. And the Uganda was not a communist country. These were issues brought. Mine was a technical one. I simply said that where you have a system with President Museveni as vice president or vice chairman, by way of constitutionalism, when the chairman dies or is incapacitated, automatically the vice president comes. However, we are fighting a civil war. When that war is finished, there will be proper elections. And whoever Uganda wants, and even if they want Chiseka, he will stand. But during the fighting of the war, it would be unwise to change leaders. It could confuse everybody. And we were in London. That's why I was making this argument. I was our leader of the delegation was the late Elia Kategaya. But Elia Kategaya was a man of few words. So really I tend to articulate the views of why Museveni should succeed Kiseka. And I was accepted. The view was accepted. And that's why we recommended. We were in London,
You
in the late John Bagay's house, with all the delegation there. And so we said, yeah, Museveni should be the leader of the NRM.
I don't want to. Okay, I will for purposes of this discussion. First of all, why is it that when you suggest some things, they are considered? For some reason, people still castigate you that you're the one who proposed it, that NRA takes on extra years than the agreed period of 4 years. We are now seeing you that when you suggested that Mr. Museveni succeeds Zirule, you were considered. What is it that is unique with you, or what is it that you either convince or confuse people to believe in your ideas?
Now, first of all, I don't want to take credit for all that. Before we went to London to propose Museveni to continue, that was the view of the High Command in the bush.
That what?
They had asked Kategaya that for us, we understand that Museveni is our leader, and he should take over from Lule while we are still fighting. We don't understand Chiseka. So it was not my view, personal. But I articulated, I was the counsel to articulate those views. That's number one. Number two, which one were you referring to?
You suggested that he exceeds the NRA government,
Yes.
especially under Mr. Museveni.
Yeah. No, that's the one I brought it up. Again, when you see the NRM, very naively, I wasn't there. When they took over Kampala, they said they would be in the government for only 4 years. But the problems were enormous. For me, I was not there. I was then in London. Remember, Rule called me later. Rather, Museveni called me later to be a minister. But I had not been at the beginning. I would have proposed 10 years. Had I been, when we took over, knowing the enormous problems. So let me tell you what happened. As time approached and the 4 years were expiring, we had the discussions with the President Museveni, the Kategayas, the Chiza Besiges, the Ruhakana Rugundas, the Mbabazi. We were talking. And then it was agreed that you Kanyeihamba, I was Minister of Justice and Attorney General. You articulate our views why we should have another term.
Who asked you that?
I have mentioned those who were Kategayas, the Musevenis, the Chiza Besije, the Ruhakana Rugunda, the Mama Mbabazi. But I was the Attorney General. So they say, you Kanyeihamba.
Articulate why we should stay here.
Yeah, do somewhat. Tell us how long it will take to do this, If you look at the Attorney General's statement, it says we shall manage to get a good police after 3 years. We shall manage to get economy going after maybe 4 years. The hospitals will be rehabilitated maybe 6 years. I gave a timetable of what each item would be, each item. That program is called the Attorney General's Statement, justifying extension of the NRM for another 5 years. And then we also said the NRM should be given 5 years, in which case no other political party will be elected, only the NRM. And we should have 5 years. And then I think that's a program I gave. One of the things we are going to achieve would take 7 years. But we said no, but that's too long. So we better only give ourselves 5 years. And then I went into the legislature and articulated those views.
Convinced the House.
Convinced the House. I didn't convince one member. So he resigned.
What was it?
Yes, he resigned.
You with your parliament and said this.
Yes, he resigned. But the others accepted.
Are those people still around? Such people that stand onto their grounds? Because up to now, he's one person that he's recognized for that decision.
Well, Norman, it is for you to find out who is still alive. I don't know. I haven't followed them up. You see, one thing that really disappointed me, when we finished making the Constitution in 1995, we set up a committee to oversee and protect the Constitution. And I remember one MP, who is now is a minister, I think, was its secretary. They never did any work. We fizzled out. We were supposed to meet regularly to make sure that the Constitution is not disobeyed.
Let me read to you this comment, and then I'll ask you a question still in regards to what was told and your decision at the time.
Yes, please.
Under the name of People Power, he says, but Mr. Museveni's war wasn't against Idi Amin.
That's a what?
That Mr. Museveni's war at heart, it wasn't against Idi Amin.
No.
That's what this person says.
But well, the war was against misgovernance.
Not Amin
as a whole, not Amin as such. It was against the misrule and the mischievous and the killings, which Amin was partly responsible, but it was shared by many.
Under the same name as People Power, before all, we first have to understand what the cause of conflict in Muslims. It's not about leadership. It's about leaders who sell Muslim properties and they are defended by the government. Otherwise, there was no conflict between Muslims and that. Yeah.
I entirely agree with that. You see, President Museveni, whether he fears individuals or not, I don't know. He doesn't. He will know Kanyeihamba stole government chairs. There is one chair here, two, which I got from the judiciary. And I was given to them by the Chief Justice. But I could be challenged because I never bought to them. But nobody followed that. Now you were here. I give two examples. Basaja Balaba is alleged to be a friend of Museveni. But Basaja Balaba had done havoc. The money Shogam, which disappeared. Basaja Balaba said, I took some of it, but the rest was taken by ministers and the civil servants who were helping me to get it. He's on record saying that. President Museveni is on record saying Basaja Balaba should pay the 1.4 billion which he took illegally. So you ask Museveni, has he ever returned that money?
Definitely not.
And if he didn't, is he still the chairman of the industry or something in the NRM? But let me go to this. And this one, I'm going to go to Museveni. He may not see me.
As usual, he will avoid.
But I've told you I am founding and I want him to be a member. Because President Museveni, if I say, Kanyeihamba Foundation is about transparency, accountability, and human rights. I would like you to be a member and contribute. Will he refuse? If he refuses, those who are asking me questions will ask him, why don't you want to be a member of the foundation which believes in integrity?
Yeah.
But most importantly, Basaja Balaba owes me personally. And if you add costs, over 200 million shillings. which I want him to pay, and we put it in the foundation. And I'm going to write to Museveni. It will be discussed with you and the other media. Later, Sajabara answer why. Because you lost the case. The court awarded Kanyeihamba that amount with the cost. Why haven't you paid it?
Okay.
There is another minister who expropriated my money. The government gave me for my sickness to go to hospital. He also will have to pay that money.
Chaguba Katongole Robert. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Robert.
Thanks for the show. But I think all what Professor is mentioning are in place, only that corruption is rampant. And also Uganda had a constitution. Why did you amend that which existed before?
You see, when you say, why did you amend that which existed before, you have to be more specific. You can say, the section so and so said the man shall be a woman. Why did you say she should remain a woman? You must give me specifics. Because we did many things. Let me tell him. Before, we didn't have term limits for the president to say you have only 2 terms. So what did we do wrong by amending the former constitution and they said the president will have only 2 terms? Let me answer that one. Doesn't he know? Secondly, we said previously the president could nominate people to be appointed judges. So we put in the constitution, no, let us have an independent judicial service commission which will make recommendation after investigating and say so and so shall be appointed a judge. So where did we go wrong? We changed the old constitution. Can he answer me those? Then I will answer them.
Chagua Robert, next time we have Professor, make sure you also answer those questions. Then we shall begin from those very questions.
Yes.
Dickens,
because what we were doing, we thought we were improving on the existing law and the constitution provision. Okay. But where he thought we went wrong, he should say so. Then I'll answer that one. But he should not simply ask an omnibus question saying, the old constitution, why did you change it? That can take me a whole year.
Nwabine Dickens, thanks for watching. And he says this is the land, the real land question. Sorry, the real land issue. I think he is referring to the introduction of the entire program. Someone asks here, and I don't want it to sound like it's a leading question.
Yeah, yes.
You are 82 years and you have seen a lot. Did you and heard a lot? Did you ever hear a rumor that Irure was poisoned while in UK?
No, I have never heard that rumor. And if I had it, I would not believe it because I know what really died of were natural causes. Okay. So I will not believe it.
Okay. Viewers, we cannot add a second. We can only say thanks for watching, following, commenting. Any questions to Professor Kanyeihamba, please send them to us. We will be having him good weeks to come because he offered time to educate, update, guide, and give opinions because he is still important to our great pal and also the entire continent and the whole world at large. Share our shows. Those of you that had an opportunity to watch live, share with your colleagues. Our social media page is The Alternative Uganda. Any businesses, any concerns, you can call 0701 800 212 or inbox in our message, inbox us, The Alternative Uganda, social media page, YouTube, Alternative Uganda, Twitter, Alternative Yuga. Get Professor Kanyeihamba's all publications in all leading bookshops in the country, and mark you, he is writing a 33rd book. Get in touch with us if you have any questions or any appointments or any public lectures where you want him to feature. He will be there for all of us. May God bless one, bless all of us. Thanks, Justice Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Norman, and thank you for the program. Thank you.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.